I was little too, I would watch the news, and you know how like you're anchoring and you're not moving your eyes, and like I was like, someday I'm gonna know how that works. I always felt like that. And I remember the feeling of just seeing the newsroom. Like, it was exactly where I wanted to be. And I remember telling my mom that phrase. I'm like, that's exactly where I want to be.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us. It is The Count.
Stacy Steinhagen, KEYC news anchor, opens up about her journey to turning dreams into a reality. She also shares powerful insights on how gratitude transformed her life.
The secret to happiness is to ask yourself 2 questions. And I thought, okay, what are these 2 questions? Did I give and grow today? What if you woke up tomorrow with only what you were grateful for today?
Wow.
And you think about that and you go, what on earth would I have?
I'm Stacy Steinhagen. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Welcome to Motivation Monday. We're here with the wonderful, amazing Stacy Steinhagen.
Oh, thank you for having me, Natalia.
I'm so excited.
Me too.
Stacy, I have so many questions for you. I'm prepped. I'm ready.
We are.
I want to start off with kind of your story. Who are you? You're a news anchor here at KYC News, but I want to know the background, the origin. How did you start?
Right. I'm so glad we're doing this. I feel like we have mini podcasts when I come to work, and it's, hey, everybody, it's 2 p.m. for me, so beginning of my day, but you are in the thick of your day and what you do, producing for Cato Living and,
Ready to fall
and
asleep.
hosting and everything. Yeah, exactly. So us Nightsiders come as the energy. Some of my background, TV was always in my heart as a kid. We're talking really little. There was a lifestyle show in the Twin Cities called, Good Company. And I mean, I'm little. I haven't even gone to kindergarten yet. And I would host a show with my mom. So it was Steve and Sharon who were the hosts, and I would make my mom be Steve, and I was Sharon. And we would do things like pretend cooking or a lot of folding laundry for some reason. Is what I would
The
kind of
daily
picture us
tasks
doing.
on TV.
Exactly. Like, my mom is going about her day, and I make her be Steve, and we're hosting a lifestyle show. So that was really little. And then fast forward a little bit, 1988. Some of the listeners might remember that was the year of the drought. So I would do a newscast in our family room. And my brother, so 88, I'm like 8. My brother would be 2, and he would do the weather. He had this little tweed jacket that he would put on, and he would do the weather. And then my newscast was heavy on the weather, which is, common even today. It was like always forecasting rain, because it was the year of the drought, and our graphics were, big poster boards, and we sat at this table and would do this little newscast. So it was always in my heart. And then in college, I was going to pursue more the PR route, kind of a safer route, and I like the idea of the PR events and some of that energy. And marketing sounded really cool. But there was a semester where, to appease my mom and my grandma, I took some broadcast classes, and the rest was history. I kind of thought that would be a throwaway semester, but it was indeed my path.
That's interesting you say that, because I feel like there's this like hint of realism. People are like, oh, you have to be more realistic. Like, what's gonna earn you a lot of money?
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's kind of what strayed me away, was like, oh, I don't know if journalism is a safe route. But I took a risk. I was like, no, this is genuinely what I want to do. So
Yeah.
how did you know in your heart, like, this is something I want to do? I see myself doing it. I have a calling. What's kind of your story?
No, you're exactly right. And I applaud my parents for having that perspective. Go for your dreams. My brother wanted to be a pilot, and he's a pilot. I wanted to be on the air, and I'm on the air, because they did not shy away from go for the dreams. It was not practicality. So I applaud them in that. And, there were those special moments. My first day when I was in college as an intern at WCCO, they're downtown, 90 South 11th Street, downtown Minneapolis. It was February 20th, 2001. And I remember the feeling of just seeing the newsroom, because there was this grand entryway that you went if you were a guest, and there was like trophy cases, and the ceiling was like, it felt like 3 miles high. Like, it was, and the floor was just gleaming. It was like the exact class and shine that you expect for TV news, if that makes sense. Like I just thought it was so polished and amazing.
Extravagant.
Exactly. It was everything. And then they had these little windows where you could see in the newsroom.
You're painting me a picture. I'm like, there.
I know. I know. It was weird. It was almost like you're on a ship, and it was like you could see in that window. And I saw physically the people that I had seen on TV my whole life. It was Caroline Lowe, John Rieger, Don Shelby, Amelia Santinella, everybody. There they are, and it was the perfection to me of energy, like it was exactly where I wanted to be. And I remember telling my mom that phrase. I'm like, that's exactly where I want to be.
How did your mom react? I mean, she saw you as a little girl and then you finally accomplished this. Like, how was she? Was rooting you on? What was she saying?
All of that. She would say she lived it right with me, like the goods and the bads, And I think that's what a lot of parenting is. She would feel the good and also the struggles of it, because it's not necessarily an easy path. But that day was definitely a highlight, because that was a powerful moment that gets you through some of the more down, struggling, trying times of this industry that can be tough,
What were you telling yourself? Were you like, I envision this for me? Like, I don't know. What were the thoughts going through your head?
I think a big part of it was the preparation, because even as you said, like, okay, you come with your notes, whatever. I was similar. So I was like, okay, what does a journalist do? So I rode the bus from the University of Minnesota, which was my school, because I came from a small high school. So I went to the big U of M where there's thousands of kids. I think 50,000 undergrads that year. They were really beefing up the student body because they had some capital improvement projects they wanted to do, I think was the thinking. But at any rate, there were a ton of kids, and I only had like 140 kids in my graduating class, right? So I loved that.
And you're a Minnesota native, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Waconia, Minnesota, just an hour north of Mankato is my hometown. Yeah. So I knew that was where I wanted to be. So I was like, well, what would a journalist do? So this is so cute. I ride the bus from the U of M to downtown. You're exactly right. Thank you for getting me back on track. So I stopped at the Starbucks, which was kitty corner, to the station. And I was like, okay, so you got to have a coffee. I also went to the newsstands and got the Star Tribune newspaper. I was like, well, obviously, as a journalist, you're going to bring the newspaper. And then I thought, I'm also going to need the St. Paul newspaper. So I got the St. Paul Pioneer Press, too. So I walk in with the 2 newspapers in my bag and the coffee. And I had these, like, really high black boots because I thought a lot of reporting was wearing, like, really cool shoes.
Mine was like trench coat. I feel like
Seriously?
I always think
Yes.
journalists wear trench coats, and I have to get one.
Agreed. That's because Natalia's style is top notch. You are absolutely correct. I mean, it's not even a Ninja Turtles thing because April O'Neil on Ninja Turtles. Yes, 100% trench coat, 100%. So it was winter, so I had, I think, a wool button-down coat type of a thing, but it was always those boots. Like I was like, do, which is funny because the reality is you ruin a lot of shoes as a reporter. But I didn't know any of that yet. I was just like, okay, so I want to be really tall. And then it turns out a lot of the people who are larger than life on TV, they're really short. Like, they're really tiny. And here I am. I'm 5'6", flat-footed. And then I wear these really tall shoes. And I just could not contain my excitement. And I think that was probably infectious for people. That was probably why I was able to get on the payroll. So I was an intern, and I was like, okay, I got to get on the payroll. That was my goal. So I went the assignment desk route. Not that it was totally suited to my talents. It's a lot of phones, a lot of coordinating crews, a lot of stress, a lot of in the moment, coordinating with producers and photographers. And there's just so much more because it's the Twin Cities too. But I loved it, Yeah. Every minute of it. It was awesome.
Interesting. You had said, when I see a lot of people that are successful or reach their goals, they always say, I acted as if I was already that. So you saying, like, I wore the knee-high boots, I picked up the newspaper, like, you were already acting as if you were the journalist, which you are, But
Right.
I think that's kind of interesting. You're prepping yourself for your reality, which I think is really fascinating.
Yeah. Like, in college already,
Yeah.
I knew that was how I wanted to go about it. Yeah, and kind of like that idea of dress for the job you want,
Yes.
So, like, I never wore jeans. I always, took it very seriously, and I loved it. And I think one thing that is surprising to people is how much journalists support other journalists and are willing to. And I have found that to be so true in all these years, because it's, we're looking at 24 years, and I feel like that piece is my life's work.
Oh. And what have you learned in 24 years being at a news station? What are the big takeaways?
Some of the biggest lessons have been David Schechter had taught me. He was at CCO in the investigative unit at the time, and he had said, make every mistake, but make it once. And I have found that to be huge. I have found that to be kind of what separates, people who, and it's not always their fault, if they make mistakes over and over again, but people who are able to, not just stress, but step back and say, okay, I'm going to learn from and never repeat that mistake, That has been something that kind of divides when you're looking at, coaching or being coachable. That's someone who says, okay, wait a minute. I know I made that mistake and I own up to it, and I'm going to learn from it and improve my work starting here. It's always that new starting point. Because the other thing is sometimes I think really successful people don't dwell on the mistake. Yeah. They're able to move past it because they've, Cinder Kamphoff says, flush it,
Yeah, they view it as a learning lesson. I think that's something that I'm learning. I feel like you could get very hard on yourself very quickly, but it's no, this happens. Everyone makes mistakes. But I like that. It's just make it once.
Yes, exactly. I found that to be huge. And then there was this other thing that happened, and this was on the radio, because I have this commute. So I'm listening to a lot of radio shows. And one of the things that I heard that was interesting was this guy was like, okay, here's the secret to happiness. And I thought, oh my gosh, they're going to cut to commercial for sure, right? They didn't. And I can't even attribute him. I tried to Google it and find out who said this. It was years ago. And they just went through and explained it right in that moment. And I thought, wow, okay, well, you have my attention, because I just got in the car and randomly I'm hearing this. It was the secret to happiness is to ask yourself 2 questions. And I thought, okay, what are these 2 questions? Did I give and grow today? And I thought, wow, okay. And this was years ago. And I always find myself coming back to that. And I think it's really powerful in whatever field you're pursuing, because it's not perfection. And a lot of women get in that space. I find myself that too, that perfectionism can really hold you back, and really we torture ourselves with it a little bit. I always have a little bit of that in me. But then to step back and say, no. Did I give and grow today? And I was like, that's everything. So I need to thank that person who was a guest on a radio show years and years ago.
Because it's stuck in your mind.
It's stuck.
It's kind of interesting. I feel like I want to give you a bit of credit, because I feel like every single day I come into work, I don't think I've ever seen you mad. I don't think I've ever seen you. I mean this. I've never seen you angry. You always have a positive energy. Even if you're having a bad day, you're like, nope, we're all going to have a great day today. And I'm just like, how does she do it? Because I'm the type of person, if I'm upset and I hate it, but you could see it on my face. You don't have that.
Yeah.
You're
that's because you're real. Yeah. No.
But I love that. I want to know, what are your gratitude exercises? I know you love to do gratitude exercises. How did you become this positive person? Were you always this positive, influential woman, or did this happen over time?
That's an interesting question, because just the other day, my friend, since 1998, she had friended me before that was a verb, in high school. And she's one of my best friends to this day. She had texted me that I'm her biggest cheerleader. And I was like, wow. And she was 3rd in our class pretty much without trying. So I was like, okay. And she did college classes in high school, before that was even a thing, She's that person. And so I was like, okay. And what she says always has a lot of weight in our friend group. And it really meant a lot to me. I was like, you know what? I think to my core, I am a cheerleader. I think that's kind of my space, And to the gratitude piece, I think when we first talked about doing a podcast, because we have those mini ones every day.
Every
and I was
day.
like, we should be recording this. This is good. So
People need to hear this.
Right, exactly. Bring this to the people. I had thought, okay, let's do a January 1st reset and whatever, blah, blah. So I kind of started at this top of the peak thing and whatever. And then I was like, wait a minute. As I roll that around in my head a little more, I think, no. let's be way kinder. Let's think about what actually works, what will stick, what will make an impact, and those small little changes that really will help people. So one thing I do is the gratitude journal, and it's in my phone. The teeniest, tiniest hack is don't add the date at the bottom, because then you're constantly scrolling.
Yeah.
Add today's date at the top. Today's entry is just Natalia. I'm grateful for Natalia.
I'm grateful for you.
I know, right? It's like, it doesn't have to be anything big, because like they say, like, what if you woke up tomorrow with only what you were grateful for today?
Oh, wow.
And you think about that and you go, what on earth would I have? Seriously, so you're building on that. We have, and even when I explain it to my coworkers, sometimes I'm like, you guys, you got clean socks, you've got clean water, you've got any number of things.
I mean, it's freezing outside, and
Right.
we have a warm home to sleep in. Like, think about that.
And we have this warm studio.
Yeah, that we complained about before, but now I'm like, wait, we should be grateful. It's warm in here.
We should explain. It's sauna warm, but we're lucky that
Yes.
it's sauna warm.
You might see me sweating a little bit, but that's all right.
Because
we got to be grateful.
Yeah, we're grateful that this conversation is getting so real. Because we're really hitting some high points,
Well, Stacy, let me ask you, with doing gratitude exercises, how have you seen your life transform? Do you feel more positive? Like, is there a difference?
I think there is. Because I think it gets you into that space where you're able to, digest life a little better, because it's that tangible thing. Because one of the things that I did back in 2017 was, lessons from my mom was like, okay, sit up straight.
Oh, I already messed
Less
that one up.
phone time. I know, that one's hard. And it's a constant. Less phone time, and realize who you are. Those were her things. And so for the less phone time, this was totally tangible. And I was so grateful for it. I don't do Facebook on the weekends.
Oh, that's a good habit.
Starting in 2017. I cheat a little bit with Instagram.
Instagram's tough.
I know, Instagram's tough. I could probably add Instagram to that list if I want to be a little healthier. But maybe, so that was like a tangible thing that I was able to do. Also, we have teases at 2:45. And I was like, no. Be ready at 2:45. Because sometimes I would still be in the newsroom writing them at like 2:47. And then people are kind of hanging in the wings, like waiting, this, that, but it all depends, because it was kind of a fluid time. And I said, no. Let's make it 2:45. Be ready, ish. Like at least at the set.
Yeah.
So those were like tangible things that I realized, okay, I can do. And I'm grateful for that stuff. It's like move in the space that you can. Like what can I control and conquer and, and tackle? Because the other thing was to-do list. When I was your age, my to-do list would be these tangible things. And then at the bottom, I would say, get a new job, and that doesn't work. Because it was like, groceries, dry cleaners, all tangible things. And then, oh yeah, this big, honking, massive life change thing that I
On the
never
to-do
got
list.
to. Yes, exactly. So
You know what I
learned.
started to do, Stacy? I started to split it up. So I have daily habits.
Yep.
So I put that as like a subhead.
Yep.
And then I have things I actually have to get done that day.
Yep.
And then I'll do extra stuff, which is like things I need to get done. I can't do it today, but I'll put it for later. And it still overwhelms me for sure. But it kind of organizes it a little bit more.
Yeah. No, and it's satisfying to like look at your phone and be like, okay, now I can
And
cross
check.
that off.
Yep.
Yeah. No,
That's interesting.
ultimately.
Well, what is your advice to people that want to be more grateful and want to start doing gratitude exercises, but are just like, oh, it's too much of work. I don't want to do it.
Keep it simple. It can be a sentence, like it's literally, you just go through the practice. It's almost like the Pilates thing or yoga or whatever you might enjoy. For me, a lot of times shopping is what I enjoy. So I'm trying to pull back on that a little bit. Financial health
I
is a
get
goal.
that.
So in that space, it's just the practice of writing even a sentence, what you're grateful for today, and then building on that, and that's where it's digestible, is that don't neglect a single day,
Okay.
it can be, you have a warm home to go home to today. That's
Seriously.
huge.
I actually, for the first time, like not for the first time, but when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, tired, still half asleep.
Yes.
But then I was like, oh my gosh, it's what, negative 17 degrees
Yes.
today, and I have
Yes.
a warm car that I don't have to go outside and heat up myself. Like,
Yes.
I'm like, okay, boom, grateful. And it's just like, it gets me in a positive energy
Yes.
because then I might feel like my day's better if
Yeah.
I think about my gratitude.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because that's
but
another thing I started to do. I'm glad you said the morning thing because I'm not a morning person.
Neither am I.
I don't write. We get it. We get it. But start your day with music.
Oh.
Because music is such a mood changer. And I saw this video on Instagram that was interesting. And it was kind of like, put your feet on the ground. So it was kind of like the idea was in the dirt. But they were like, no. Also at your home and your carpet or your rug or your wood floor. But you're grounding yourself and feel the music. Dance it out a little bit if you're feeling brave. Who cares? Do it. Because that starts your day. Instead of, checking your phone, looking at your email, catching up on, something that might pull you immediately upon getting up into the workspace.
Yeah.
I was like, no. Start your day with music. And I've been trying to do that. So it's been Shabuzi Tipsy. That's been my song that I start with.
Well, Stacey, I feel like, again, I've never seen you have a bad day, which I'm sure you do, but I don't see it because you just always are so positive and light. But if you do have a bad day, how do you kind of pull yourself out of it? What are your tips and tricks?
Right.
Kind of a loaded question. I'm sorry.
No, that's a good one. I think on a realistic level, it's just back to task at hand. I don't know. I think, because, you're right. There's no way that I'm by any means perfect.
Almost. You are. You're pretty much perfect, but.
You're my favorite. I'm like, it's just, I don't know. I think it is a decision, I think, to just, try and, present yourself in the best way possible. There's something about what I do that's performative, with the 5, 6, and 10. It's always, the goal is always consistency, and there's something performative about just showing up. Half of life is showing up, as they always say, And for me, I think something that I think about is like a newsroom where I would walk in and be like, hey, guys, and there's no response. That's not a good fit for me, And I think something that makes me valuable is the fact that I did work in a space that wasn't a good fit for me for a very long time. And so I carry that in a way that makes me kind of a tool, I think, or I hope, in the newsroom. You know what I mean? As far as like making sure that it's to the best of my ability. I'm only one person, but a space where people can feel like it's grad school, where you can come here, learn. Like, you can figure out where your skill sets are. I mean, look at you killing it on this podcast, right? You guys. So, you can try everything.
Yeah.
And then, you can say, oh, turns out education reporting is for me, or sports reporting, or whatever it might be, or producing, or people find out this isn't their path because there are sacrifices, And I think that's probably the energy that I'm bringing, maybe even on a subconscious level, is that let's all be in the newsroom together, which can be a little piece of heaven because it can be this irreverent, hilarious, sacred space, really. Like, it's kind of my favorite place. The studio and the newsroom are like my favorite place.
Aw.
Because of the environment.
I do feel like immediately when Stacy walks through the door, I'm like positive, boom, angels. And it's like, that is a
That's
hard thing to
special.
do. If you could carry that kind of energy and that kind of presence in a room, I feel like that's a huge thing. So I do want to congratulate you on that. I feel like
That's amazing.
something I want to learn to do is like be that person that people want to be around because that's
Right. Yeah.
it's kind of hard,
Yeah.
If you're having a bad day, people could feel it. So it's like the
Yeah.
fact that you always carry this positivity and light, people feel it, So
Aw.
just want to let you know that. But
That's
anyways.
amazing. Thank you. That means a lot because I think you do learn a lot in these work environments. Everybody's had bosses or coworkers or experiences, even out in the world, with it might even be an interaction at a store where you learn how you don't want to behave.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like how you can internalize that. Like, to be like, okay, so the lesson learned is I would like to make sure that I'm, this way for somebody, or you know what I mean? A resource for someone, or, just trying to be helpful or whatever. Yeah.
I love that.
That means a lot.
Oh, thank you, Stacey. Well, I do want to talk a little bit about our book reads. I know that was kind of a segue, but we always talk about kind of positive books, self-help books. I love self-help books. So I'm curious to hear what you're reading currently.
Okay, so on my bedside table, this is always interesting. I mean, if you want to learn about someone, right? So Mel Robbins on Instagram, I think, is one of the most valuable Instagram posters, honestly. Like, the content that she brings is so relatable and tangible. And the research that she is putting forward right now is this let them theory. And I find it to be so freeing. So I definitely recommend this book. I recommend following her on Instagram or seeking out this philosophy, because women especially, something will arise, even for me, like in my family, like if something's going on, I always want to fix it. And it was like, wait a minute, step back, ask yourself, what can I control here? I cannot control how other people behave, think, what they do, what they say, whatever, because for me, a lot of times I would find myself in that headspace of, oh, I felt misunderstood in that, and I need to correct that, and I need to whatever, and it was like, it's a matter of being free of that. And it is empowering, and then after that, there's a second part, which is let me. So that's where I'm at in the book right now. So I'm in there where she's saying, okay, so now once you have gained that control, because now you understand where your power is, then you do have to take some ownership in what you can do in the situation, So it's not just let them and everything burns, but it is relinquishing that that power piece where you're really gripping on something that you can be free of.
It's kind of interesting because I feel like people will think, oh, if I just let them do this, they're getting away with it. But it's like, no, this is freeing yourself. Like, this is helping you, not them.
Exactly.
They're doing what they're going to do, but it's helping your mind, you not overthink, you not overstress. I feel like it is a very freeing feeling. And I kind of started thinking about that. I'm like, oh, they did this to me? Oh, my gosh. And I could be angry and I could be frustrated. I'm like, no. Just let them do what they're going to do. I can only control my behavior and the way I react to them. Sometimes I may mess up, but I feel like there's a good way of getting back control and being like, no, like this is all going to work out. And I feel like, a lot of people have different opinions on self-help books. Some are like, oh, this is whatever. But I feel like for me, it really kind of makes me look at my behavior and like, what ways can I improve? How can I change? Because I'm always willing to learn and grow as a person. And I feel like self-help books are different perspectives and different lessons and things like that. So I feel like Mel Robbins' book, I'm excited about, and I'm going to read after you.
I think that's huge because that's that empowering piece. And the, 3 fingers are pointing back at you when you're looking at this thing. And it's in so many realms of life that you can say, let them. Relationships, I think that's been huge for me in the newsroom too, because I'm older and I can, help people. And it's one of those things where I have that perspective to say like, no, let them, like they've shown you who they are, let them, but it's always something that everyone has to come to their own thing. But if someone chooses a different path, let them.
Yeah.
But it's a way to reset.
I feel like she's taken off. I feel like everybody's talking about let them. I've even seen people get tattoos and stuff of her quote.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually very fascinating.
It's huge.
It's hard to grasp because I feel like a lot of people love control over life. And I feel like it's inevitable. Like you're bound to feel like, oh, I need to control this. But it's like, it's a big lesson I learned. Even with Brandon Williamson, who was on this podcast, he talked a lot about you can't control it. Don't let it go. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, that is such a big piece of advice that I don't take, which I'm like going to start learning. But all right.
I love that.
Other
That's
books
progress.
do you have? Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
So
excited.
this one is Adam Moss, who spent 4 decades as an editor. So we're talking the New York Magazine and New York Times Magazine. And his book here is The Work of Art. So it's all about the process, but it's so much more than that. And he, as an editor, would try to impart to the people who he worked with and people who worked for him the delight in creating their best work.
Okay.
So, it was kind of like reveling in that work, like this moment right now, like the editing, the process.
So like the
creation.
progress, not the final destination type of thing. Okay.
Yeah, all of it. That too. But it was like, embracing that grind.
Well, can I ask you, Stacy?
Uh-huh.
So here you are, a child, and you're like, I want to be a journalist. I know I'm going to be on TV. I can't wait. And then you have this timeline of you kind of practicing and doing your best work. And now you're here. You're a news anchor. You've accomplished a lot. How do you not stop? I don't know how to word this correctly. How do you keep going? How do you keep growing in your craft versus being like, well, I already made my final destination. What now? You know?
Right.
Does that make any sense?
No, that's a beautiful question because I've wondered that too. Any refresh of my resume with some of my friends who for sport will get new jobs, which is not my comfort zone. Even this, not my comfort zone, but it's always I'm
doing a wonderful job.
Other people. Oh. But it's it's not about me. The happiest I've been has been in the teaching mode. And when I took this job, that was part of my job duty, just in that list, of things that you're going to have as your job responsibilities that I was the most apprehensive about was being this teaching role. And I have found it to be my life's work and why I still do this. I love it so much. The collaboration, the, honing of the story, working with Rob on some of those stories where I was the reporter and he's the photographer and editor, masterfully done on Rob's part, which was so cool because I had a vision and he made it happen. And we did that collaboratively. So it means so much to me. And I think that's why I still do it, is because of the newsroom.
That's beautifully said, Stacy.
Yeah.
So you like working in a team. That's kind of what fuels you. You like teaching and learning and doing those kinds of things.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why I never had an office door. So my mom named me Stacy, just CY, as the unisex spelling, so I could be a boy, because she thought I'm going to have this big job with an office door, and you won't know if I'm male or female. So she was a total feminist.
Wow.
Ahead of her time. But I never had an office door because the newsroom is the low-profile cubes because we work collaboratively. So it's interesting that I was like, no, this was my path. I don't have, name tag on a lab coat type of a thing. That's kind of what she envisioned, just having a baby in 1979. But
well, I want to ask you this. This might be an interesting question, but I am curious. So when people think news anchors, they think competition. It's hard to get into. It's competitive. How do you kind of switch that mentality? Because that's not going to get you anywhere. How do you work as a team? What's that kind of atmosphere like?
I have found way more than I ever expected women building up other women. And that is also to my core. When I was your age, however, I did hear from people who were advanced in their career saying, you're going to do great, especially if you step on other people. I know. But I think that was just a warning about how cutthroat news can be. It wasn't, a license to do that. Or it wasn't someone saying, they respect that or applaud it or whatever. It was more like a warning and just kind of what they saw potentially, because TV's tough.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who would say, they were advanced in their career and they would say they discourage people kind of as a test, despite being discouraged, do they continue? But to me, they'd be like, you'll be fine, whatever. And I always thought, well, that's very kind. There's a lot of kindness in the people who pursue this, and a lot of cool people pursue this industry. And I have found that to be true year 1, year 24. I mean, there's so many people. Dion is my best friend, And
you and Dion are besties.
We're besties. My whole day,
Dion, finish my thought, and he'll just finish it. I'm like, how did they do that? I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Yes, we do work really well together because he's everything trivia and all the vocab, and I'm the energy. So together,
just make a perfect team.
We do. We make a perfect team, and it's constantly DC, DC, DC with his noise canceling headphones on. So that's our day. But he would say too, the kids grow up so fast. There are generations of journalists who have come through KEYC's doors, and that is my life's work. So it's not about me. It's about them.
I feel like I watch a lot of different podcasts and a lot of I'd say successful people, and they say once you get to that point of success or whatever is considered your success, they say that the meaningful stuff is when you see others like learn from you and you kind of advise and guide. And I think that's very fascinating because I feel like I've learned a lot from you and you teach all the time and you're always willing to share. You're not like closed off. Like for some reason I had this assumption that if I work in news, like I'm gonna be fetching coffees and then being like, oh my God, nobody wants to talk to me. But that's not the experience
Don't you
I've
love
got.
TV news
I love
movies?
TV. Yeah, literally. That is not at all what
love
it's like.
all of them. Inaccurate, accurate. I love all of it. No, I think that's everything. Yeah.
I think the learning lesson from this podcast is it's a team effort. And I love asking questions because I feel like you get so many different perspectives and different advice. And So anyway, let's keep talking about your book because we kind of segued.
Yeah.
But
so that's the premise of it. So it's just, he talks to the people who have done work that you and I would recognize as, the Andy Warhols of the world type of a deal. And you learn all about the work that goes into it. And that was, I guess, one of the most startling things too, is like, I had this idea that, this 1.5-minute story is done in 1.5 minutes type of, you know what I mean? Maybe not quite 1.5 minutes, but it was like, how can that be a day's work? That was kind of the idea. And that's some of what you learn when you pursue this field, is like, oh, okay. And also I do my own hair and makeup, so apologies. Like it's just like, and on my off time, it is always in a ponytail, like, always. And then because it's warm in here, it's like, okay, so it's always in a ponytail. And I think one of the things too that was funny, generations of people who have come through, the photographs that would be on the website for our bios, I would scare people. And I was like, why is that always the reaction? And they're like, so convinced that when they come here, I'm going to be mean. And that was like the most surprising thing to them, that I'm not. And I was like, oh my gosh. So the power of a photo. That's a lesson.
What is it? 1,000 words in one photo?
Yes. I'm mean. They're like, oh, wait a minute. She's not mean at all. But so it's things like that. It's like, try to be real, be accessible to the viewers, be there for the viewers. That's number one. We serve them, like if people take, one thing away from this podcast, that's a victory. If they start their own gratitude journal, that's huge, or if they start their day with music because they listen to this idea about ground your feet and dance it off, you're shedding yesterday's stress, sign me up.
Well, what is your biggest advice to young journalists?
Do it if you have to. For sure.
Expand.
Like if it's in you. It wasn't something that I could turn my back on, Like it was like, I tried, I was going to do PR and marketing, And then whenever I'd dust my resume off, it always had to be TV, and like to my friends' dismay, because they'd be like, get a job, with better hours and whatever, less sacrifice.
Like, you don't get it. It's in my heart. It's in my soul.
It's like, you don't get it. I've been doing a TV show since my mom was folding laundry in 1984. You don't get it.
The grind. You don't understand.
The grind. Exactly. The work of art. Like, you don't get
Self-promo.
Exactly. I was like, so I recommend this book. I recommend, I think the coolest thing is seeing people in their element. Like that has been what has kept me going. Like even when I wasn't at a place where I was doing my best work because it wasn't a good fit. It was years of that, and it was the grind, and I would just kind of like put my head down and work so hard. Never eat lunch. Okay, as if being unfueled is going to help me. Okay, just trying to attack it from a insufficient type of way. I would have these stories that would like tent pole my career. Like I'd be like, okay, because not every story. I would always feel the responsibility of doing a good job because, I've interviewed these people and they've trusted me. There's a trust there, But then I would have these stories that would tent pole like, no, I got to stick with this because I had found in 1997 talking to people was what I loved. Like that was the thing. Like I was like, that's what I want to do. I told my mom, I was like, that's what I want to do. Talk to people.
That's
you know?
crazy. Can we talk about that? Like the fact that you knew what you wanted to do for so long.
Yeah.
For me, I feel like it's somehow just kind of
Yeah.
happened. Like I knew I wanted to do it. I didn't know if it was
Uh-huh.
going to happen, but you like had a plan. It was in the back of your mind. And yeah, you had a little bit of a push, but you still kind of knew.
Right.
What is the answer? Like, how did you know? Was it something in your mind that was like, this is what I'm going to do? Like it just kind of happened or?
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're right. There were the pushes, there were pulls too in life. But it's something where I have found people, very successful people who made it. I mean, we're talking network, whatever, who fell into it like you did, you know? So it's both paths. There's no right or wrong path to it. Sometimes people who have found the most success have background in political science. That never hurts. A law degree also never hurts. I mean, if you're trying to do a court story, imagine what a law degree would do, you know? So there's people who have found their way to journalism, and then there's people who, you know, were like, I want to do that. I mean, because when I was little too, I would watch the news, and you know how like you're anchoring and you're not moving your eyes, and like I was like, someday I'm gonna know how that works. I always felt like that. So little. And I thought it was like gonna mean having a clipboard. Like I was like, okay, so when you're a journalist, you have a clipboard. And like as a kid, I was like, I'm gonna walk around with a clipboard and I'm gonna be a boss and I'm gonna know how it works. I wanted to know how TV works. That was kind of it too.
And what is your advice to, let's say somebody wants to be a news anchor just like Stacy. Like, I want to be like her. What's your advice for them?
Yeah, well, study hard because it's a changing industry. So I predict it's not going to look anything like it did when I was their age, you know, because TV is changing so much. The TV part of it being the afterthought now, you know, it's the online presence, it's the podcast form, it's not the edited clips that people are seeking out, you know, and it's the scrolling, you know, what are people stopping on? But the value of journalism will never go away. You know, you're holding public figures to account. You know, elected officials. You're going to hold them to account for what they say and what they do. You're going to make sure that public funds are spent in the right way. Public education remains strong or gets stronger at the very least. Like it's there's such a power in investigative journalism. Like this is the thing that changes, you know, society as we know it, you know, because people have a cause and they have a purpose and you can give a voice to people who otherwise wouldn't. So there will always be a place for journalism and good journalism because people will stop, you know, when they're scrolling and they'll see that. So I think my advice is to get into that space. You know, it's not going to be the newscast like I grew up watching, you know, at 5. People would gather and watch the news. That's going away. So I would say change with the times, which they're aware of because they're part of those changes. You know, they're young. Yeah.
So with you being in the news industry 24 years, outside of just digital, how have you seen things kind of change and shift with time?
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. It looks nothing like it used to because social media didn't exist. You know, the deadline was the newscast. And you never miss slot. You know, like I remember running a tape to the tape room on more than one occasion, and the anchor was reading the intro, and my story was put in that tape deck and played on time, but just barely, you know, but you make it. You always make it. That's all that matters, right? And because the best soundbite in the world that doesn't air or get seen, what's the point of that, right? So it's going to be a different world, you know, as far as, and we've seen it firsthand in our newsroom and in ownership elsewhere, decisions that have been made staffing wise. And you just have to roll with those punches, you know, because there again, it's that control piece, you know, let them. These are decisions made outside of your control, and you have to adapt and move forward. But I do believe there will always be a place for excellent journalism.
I agree with you, and I'm not being biased.
Yeah, I know, right? I was like, yeah, you're going to agree with me there, right? Yep. For sure.
Well, Stacy, I know you wanted to do a little fun game.
Yeah.
So do you want to kind of introduce what you wanted to do?
Okay, yes. So on occasion, I pitch things to Cato Living as segment ideas. And I was like, okay, let's really get to the fun part here. So these are my desert island products. Okay.
What does that mean? What does
Like-
desert island products mean?
Cannot live without. Like, I would bring this, if I could, to a desert island. So I have 3 of these little things. Okay, so, and skincare is always a fun topic in the newsroom. Like, we just, oh my gosh, we could talk
Well,
forever
Stacy,
about all of
you
that.
have like a passion for skincare. I say if you were not a news anchor, you'd be a dermatologist. I know that 100%.
She's not wrong. I know. And people have said that, like dermatologists, estheticians, they have said, well, I know I have the commitment from you. You'll actually do what I say, you know, like, and I will. If it's a 17-step regimen, I'll do it. Every night, you got it. Like,
Forget
it's
to
all
take
good.
my makeup off, let alone do a whole
And
skincare
look
routine.
at your skin. Oh my
Stop
God.
it.
That's jeans.
This whole podcast is going to be us complimenting each
All
other.
right. Oh, you are amazing. Oh my God. And that's my life's work. You guys amazing. Okay. So this is, how do you say it? Centella. Skin 1004. It is at Ulta. This is an oil cleanser that you use before your regular cleanser. So this
Okay.
like evaporates the makeup, and for me it would be tinted moisturizer. That's what I'm wearing all the time. And like, okay, so and
is it
I'm
like a
feeling like my
makeup-
pores are open now because we're in this sauna situation in here. Whew. So when you're on a desert island, this is a brand you're going to recognize because we've had discussions about this one. So it's this OC. I've heard people say it that way. We're not sure.
I was going to say Osea.
Oh, I know.
It's probably wrong.
Well, and who knows?
Can't pronounce
Like,
names.
who even knows? I heard it on Instagram. But this is also at Ulta for people who are like, okay, where do you even get this? This body oil you can put on and then immediately get dressed. So it's like a body oil that isn't greasy. I mean, liquid gold, right? And it is gold in color, but this is what this brand looks like for people who are like cruising around Ulta. And this is another product of theirs, anti-aging body balm. So, like, this isn't an ad. These are literally just items that I, like, love and could not live without. It's slightly firming. Okay. Well, at my age, bingo. Like,
Well,
what?
how did you hear about this brand? How did it become? It's kind of newer
Yes.
now.
Okay, so this is where I'm always like, okay, Victoria Beckham had posted on Instagram that she liked this body oil. And I was like, okay. But that's always where I use DC. I was like, who's married to David Beckham? And then he's like, Victoria Beckham, you know. That's how our day goes. But yeah, Victoria Beckham had posted that she likes this and just randomly, whatever. And I was like, okay. Because body oils can be tricky, you know, and it's not necessarily practical to wait a long time to get dressed, you know, like, and you don't have to. It doesn't ruin your clothes. Amazing. And then this slightly firming stuff, I mean, sold.
Well, you have been nice enough and got me a wonderful gift, and I love it. The
It is good.
cleanser smells great. I feel refreshed. That's a good word. I say
Uh-huh.
refreshed every time.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
these are cool. I don't really know what my thing would be. I haven't. I feel like the easiest answer is a cell phone, but then
I know, right? What's
That
the
doesn't count.
cell service like on your
Yeah.
desert island? But no, the cell phone is a tool, you know, despite saying like, okay, we're going to do less phone time. It is a tool, you know, and that's where the gratitude journal is for
Yeah.
me. So I get it.
okay.
Yeah,
and
no
Stacey,
judgment.
I'm gonna ask you one last question. If you could talk to your younger self, what would you tell her?
I would say be kinder to yourself. Because my default setting is to not treat myself like I treat my friends, you know? Because even the lens of like, you know, those restarts, you know, with like, oh, January 1st, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And that perfectionism gets in there. And I even love a restart of a February 1st type of a thing or a new week or a refreshing thing. But as I've gotten older, I wouldn't go back to my 20s, you know, despite better skin and whatever, because I'm kinder to myself. So that's definitely the message. Chill.
Relax.
Yes, chill.
Why do you feel that is? Why do you feel like you are kinder to yourself now than you were in your 20s?
I think I've learned that lesson the hard way, you know? And I think that's where I really can play a role in sometimes saving people from learning some of the lessons the hard way. Sometimes I can't, but where I can, I will, you know, try and impart that wisdom of like, wait a minute, no negative self-talk or whatever, you know what I mean? Whatever it might be, like it's that encouraging space and that freedom again, to not be under, under your own heel. Like I held myself back, in hindsight. I see moments where I let the fear take over, people who did big things isn't because there was an absence of fear. They did it anyway. And I allowed the fear to rule in a way that I wouldn't do that now. I'd be kinder to myself now.
I think that's a great way to start saying I am confirmations. I am kind, I am confident, and I am charismatic. I feel like I have to start speaking more affirmations to myself. I feel like we often say it to others, but not ourselves. And that's kind of interesting.
Because I'm sure you're a great friend.
Oh, thanks.
Because you are. You're a great friend in the newsroom, so I'm sure you are. And so turn that on yourself, too.
That was a great piece of advice. I just want to thank you, Stacy. I love this conversation, and I know your advice and wisdom will help somebody out there as much as it's helped me. So I just want to say thank you one more time, Stacy.
Thank you for having me. You do an awesome job, and we'll have many, many more mini little podcasts in the newsroom. Thank you so much.